Hello and welcome to Surveyor Says, the podcast from the National Society of Professional Surveyors. Each week, we bring you fascinating guests that are involved in the profession of surveying. We cover a lot of ground, including Table A Talk with Gary Kent, Point of Order with the NSPS Joint Government Affairs Team, Future Focus, highlighting current and future leaders of the profession, and everything survey-related in between. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Surveyor Says. This episode of Surveyor Says is brought to you by Esri. Esri is the global market leader in geographic information system software, location intelligence, and mapping. Since 1969, Esri has supported customers with geographic science and geospatial analytics, what they call the science of where. To learn more about the company, software, technology, and the programs they support, please visit esri.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of Surveyor Says. This is your host, Tim Burch, and we are really kicking off something that's very exciting, or at least it's exciting to me, so I'm hoping it's exciting to the rest of the listeners and to the profession, because we've got, I won't even call her a special guest anymore. She is our she's not incoming. She is our vice president. Speaking of Linda Foster of South Dakota. And we've got a brand new series to go along with a very special partnership that we have with Esri that we are starting this year. And so we're going to have a little series of a combination of podcasts and webinars and articles and a whole bunch of other stuff with Linda. And the series is called Surveying and GIS with Linda Foster. And so we've invited Linda on today. Good morning, Linda. How are you doing today?
I'm well, Tim. Thank you for having me.
So we thought we'd have Linda on because we've put this together actually very quickly. I guess that's the power of promotion these days. We do have a webinar coming up on Thursday, April 20th. I think I got my dates right. That we'll talk about. And then we've got several other webinars that are coming up as well. So we'll have Linda run through those and just give us a taste of what, and I guess that's been the beauty of getting to know Linda these last several years. And we're already feeling the influx of her, basically what she brings to the table as a professional land surveyor and a GIS professional, and the power of GIS being merged in with the power of the technology of surveying. So Linda, I've said all of that so we can roll out the red carpet for this new series we're putting together with you and Esri. We appreciate Esri stepping up as an industry partner. Tell us a little bit about where we want to go with surveying and GIS and the merging technologies.
Well, absolutely. Thank you, Tim. Just a quick brief intro for those who don't know me. I'm Linda Foster, as Tim mentioned, and I am the Global Manager of Land Records and Cadastre for Esri. I've had the fortune of working in both the land surveying and GIS professions really in tandem my entire career, and they are both absolutely a passion of mine. So this is an area that really gets me excited, and Tim will probably have to cut me off at time here, because once I get going, sometimes I can't help myself and slow down. But yes, we are looking at just where we are as an industry as a whole in land surveying, and also in the GIS side of things as well. We're very busy these days. We're very fortunate to have a lot of work out there to do, and we have the infrastructure work that's coming as well. We all know there's a lot of discussion around workforce development and education, and how do we squeeze everything into a day. And so we thought, a webinar series would be a nice way to help people stay up to speed with what's going on, short snippets, an hour at a time, to really just introduce those who maybe don't have a chance to spend a lot of time with a deep dive into certain topics. And so hopefully we can bring that to the table and just introduce those who maybe don't know a lot about it, or for those who've maybe stuck their toe in but really want to take off and learn more about how GIS can help them as a land surveyor. This series is really for you. That's what we're hoping to do here. So the first webinar, as Tim mentioned, is coming up very quickly here this Thursday, April 20th. And it will just really be an opener. Let's get to know what GIS can do for land surveyors. Let's take a look at where we are in today's climate, and really how can GIS help you, whether you're a public sector surveyor or whether you're in private sector, private practice. What are the ways that GIS can help your business? How can it help you manage and organize and augment your business as a land surveyor? How can it help your client deliverables? And how can it help you maybe manage your projects if you're on the public side and you are responsible for organizing and managing those projects? So really the first one's nice overview. We're just going to open it up and do some history and background and look at how we got to where we are today, what's changed over the last few decades, why is it exciting right now for us to be where we are, and what's the future holding for us. So really that's what we'll take a close look at in the first webinar. The second and third will dive a little bit deeper into more technical topics. Second one will be focused for those of you who are in cadastral surveying. I think you'll really love this topic. It will take a deeper dive into our parcel fabric and look at what that means for surveyors and how that integrates into what the surveyor does. It's really an excellent opportunity or option for those of you who practice in cadastral surveying. And then the third one is really taking a close look at field solutions. So we know that we have a lot of interest in opportunity around as-builting, taking that data that post-construction we want to capture and move into operations and maintenance. We're seeing a lot more of that being called for in contract documents, especially with the infrastructure bill coming. And how can we really leverage GIS to keep our field crews safer, make those workflows more seamless, and really add efficiency and value add for your customers on the other side.
Very good. No, we're looking forward to all of these webinars. I think it's going to really offer and help connect the dots, and like we said, merge these technologies of what we've been able to bring really forward with not just the GNSS and the robots. It is scanning. I mean, it's a multitude of information that we're able to collect. And then what I'm really looking forward to, and I think the listeners should really pay attention to this, is the parcel fabric, and really all the work that's going to be done can be done with parcel fabric in a cadastre in parcels, and really the leaps and bounds that Esri brings to the table with the capability of being able to manage all of these shape files, all of these parcels. And I guess that's the one thing that still it does excite me. And yeah, unfortunately, I think we almost need a third party on here to pull us both away from when we start to geek out about all of these things. But what's been interesting is getting to understand and realize how important cadastres are around the world, and how important it really would be to take that same technology and thought process and apply it to our parcel databases, and being able to manage things that much more with really more data, and being more robust, of being able to manage and work efficiently within parcels. And I think that's what parcel fabric really brings to the table.
It absolutely does. And we're in an interesting point in our country right now from a cadastral standpoint. We're reasonably mature compared to many other countries around the world with our land record situation, but we always have room for improvement. And I think what we're seeing right now is, I like to call it the part 2, phase 2, volume 2, whatever you want to call it. We're mapped, we're digital, we have great things going on in our country, but how do we make it better? And spatial accuracy is one area that we're really seeing a lot of interest around, and a lot of interest for improvement around. So I'm very excited for the next few years to see where we go with this. The parcel fabric gives us the vehicle to do it, but we need land surveyors right alongside us to provide the data and information needed to augment and make these data sets better.
Exactly. Well, and what I'm looking forward to beyond the webinars is some of the conversations that we're gonna have on a regular basis, talking about surveying and how much the GIS technology can really play into what can enhance the surveyor's knowledge base and and even what more they can bring to the public and their clients with some of the information that's out there. Because what's fascinating to me, and I've learned so much more in the time that you and I have worked together on some things about open source data, and a lot of the places that we can utilize a lot more information to provide that much more guidance, that much more consultation to our clients, both private and public. And there's just so much information that's out there, but it's also from the surveying perspective, being able to disseminate what is truly, I'll call it survey accurate, and what is really kind of a mapping overall. There's some things that you want to make sure of that maybe doesn't have the precision and accuracy that's necessary for our work, and knowing what some of the differences are as well. But there's still some great open source data sets out there that can really enhance what we can provide as far as our overall product to our clients.
That's right. And I think one of there's two keys here that I heard you saying there, Tim. And one is, I think what we really need to think about as land surveyors especially is keeping our data living. As land surveyors, traditionally, we're very project oriented and project based. And so there's a beginning and an end, and there's an incredible amount of work and data that's developed and captured, gathered, processed, and used. And then unfortunately it dies. The project gets built, contracts are wrapped up and finished, and then unfortunately a lot of that data ends up shelved. And so one of the trends that we're seeing right now is really an interest in some of our larger organizations across the country in using GIS to keep our data living. And it really touches on what you said there, Tim, of being able to access our data and have that data available for inside our companies, for our employees and our stakeholders internally, but also for our customers and clients and the public in some instances. Being able to have that live data feed back and forth between whether it's a consultant owner type of a situation, or even if it's inside your own government organizations, just being able to all have access to that data in real time all of the time, because we all know we make much better decisions when we have data available to us, and the best data possible, ideally, available at all times. And that's where today's technology really gets me excited, because web services, little teaser for our webinar here, we'll talk about those. They're really a game changer in what GIS can do for us. And those are areas that, I think there's a lot of excitement for surveyors, and just being able to leverage those data sets and having them be readily available. And then the other thing you touched on too, Tim, is quality of data, high accuracy data, kind of dancing around the appropriate use of data. Absolutely. There's two things there. There's metadata. Everybody hates the word. I had to get that out of my system, but it really is a critical part of what all of us do in the geospatial fields, whether you're a land surveyor, a GIS professional, anyone who's handling geospatial data. Metadata is absolutely critical, and it's only going to become more so as we move into the future here with our dynamic datums that are just around the corner and the work the NGIS is doing. It only becomes more critical. And so those are things that are very important. And I think just also healthy education amongst the communities between the land surveyors and the GIS practitioners of really understanding what each group does and who has responsible charge in what situations, just a really just healthy understanding and respect. I think those are really key for all of those parts working together and the machine running smoothly, if you will.
Oh, exactly. Well, before we get I do have a couple of other topics I want to go off on too many tangents. Let's go back to the webinar series for a moment. Somebody that's interested, we'll have some stuff in the show notes, but where is all this going to reside? How does somebody that's now interested in this webinar series, where can they go to get signed up for it?
Absolutely. So we have a webpage out there for you to be able to sign up, and we'll provide those links with the podcast here. Don't worry. If you're in the field, if you're busy, you can't make it during the live session, not to worry at all. Get your registration in, and you will be sent a link of the recording as well straight to your inbox. We'll also post those and have them available for viewing after the event as well. So you won't miss out if you can't catch the live version.
That's great. And I guess that's the beauty of technology and the world we live in now, that it's not about, if you didn't catch it live on network TV or live on the radio, whatever, that you're missing out. It's you take the information and you digest it when it's convenient for you. And I think that's just the wonderful part about the technology and being able to have these kinds of conversations and be able to take that information forward. So yes, we'll have everything. We hopefully our listeners and our members and non-members won't be too inundated with the links, but we'll blast it out with the podcast, with some social media, with some direct emails, because this is a very exciting series. I'm really looking forward to taking this all in, because I want to continue to learn more, because I think there is just that much more to be able to combine all of these things. I just remember the excitement of I'll say the first EDM I was able to use early in my career. That dates me, doesn't it, a little bit? But then the first data collector, the first robot, the first GPS, and then GNSS, and some of this, just the technology as it continues on. Now to be able to pull in some of these data sets and the tools that GIS allows us to put together, it's exciting. You're right. I will completely geek out on all this stuff, but I think there's a lot of practitioners out there that will enjoy it to the same degree, if not more, than you and I do.
Absolutely, and hopefully we can help some of you along the way too. If you're seeing new requirements we're needing to deliver in GIS deliverables now. I know that's becoming more prevalent. Hopefully these webinars will have a little bit of something for everyone. That we can help you out in things that you're doing in your daily work.
Very good. All right. Well, I did promise to go off on a couple of little tangents, because I think it's important that people also understand where some of the possibilities are with this this merging of the technologies. And one thing you touched on earlier, and I think, yes, we'll talk about it probably more in some webinars and such, but going back into the whole concept of as-builts and compiling all of this data, and it's not just the public, it's some private companies and other entities that are wanting this data in GIS, because it is so much more robust than a text file or just even a simple CAD file. There's so much more information that can be put in this GIS database with georeferenced information. Where are you seeing a lot of this technology being pushed forward as far as built and other avenues that makes this information just that much more robust?
Well, as-builts are an area that we absolutely are seeing a lot of activity in, and it makes complete sense, because you and I both understand as practicing land surveyors ourselves how our built world is moving, and it's moving at a rapid pace, and our rights of way are filling up with underground infrastructure, with above ground infrastructure, with infrastructure period. And as our infrastructure ages out and we need to replace it or we need to expand it, we're understanding and realizing now just how critical it is to know where those features are. And that's a challenge quite often. We don't know where our infrastructure is underneath the ground always. And it poses a danger. It adds cost to projects. It adds to O&M costs. It's inefficient all of the way around. And so with the infrastructure bill, particularly here, on the scene, there's absolutely a tremendous amount of opportunity and we have the technology and the capability now to be able to capture that information with a high level of accuracy and put it in a system that will live. It kind of goes back to that living system that I mentioned. It's going into a system that's easily accessible anywhere, anytime, to anybody, of course, that you grant permission to, can get their hands on the data. So no longer are we digging through filing cabinets or wondering if it's still in a banker's box in the basement, kind of
Exactly.
a situation. We all know, we all chuckle, but we know that's the reality. And we want to move into the future with a different approach. And hopefully that means capturing the infrastructure before it gets buried, as it's going in the ground with a high degree of accuracy, and having it placed in a living system that can be readily accessible, very soon thereafter. And I think that's a really important thing.
Exactly. Excuse me. Exactly. And, that's, and I'm just going to tease this and say, we're going to save that for another podcast, another conversation, about, because I would like to delve into a little bit of your past and a little bit of like I said, all the record keeping, all of the data that you were doing with all of your mine work in South Dakota that I think would be interesting. But to your point is that I know I've worked in enough different places, factories, even municipalities, that they may have a bunch of old paper records, old hand-drawn stuff that doesn't necessarily say when a sewer was installed and when a fire hydrant has been installed or a water main, what have you. And I think we're just now in a lot of places seeing that the shelf life of these utilities, because it hasn't been tracked, now they're failing. And now it's a matter of knowing what that upkeep and what that revitalization cost is going to be. And you're right, the infrastructure bill is hopefully going to help with some of that. But I think this is an opportunity to do more record keeping of all of this digital data as well. So I think you're absolutely right that this is an opportunity for surveying to really come back to being an important part of this databasing of all of these as-built. So I look forward to being able to talk more about that aspect down the road, because it is an opportunity it's a lot of mapping that needs to be done. And because it really needs to be geo-referenced, like you said, going forward with the dynamic datums with NGIS and a few things, it really needs to have some oversight putting it all together.
It really does. And it really, it solves a lot of, maybe, I don't know if I would say problems, but a lot of challenges that you and I have experienced through our practice, and just a couple of other areas that keeping this information in a living system or leveraging GIS to hang on to that golden information that land surveyors, are capturing every day of their lives, is two things I would say is, our workforce changes that are happening right now. We have so many folks that are retiring out with our baby boomer generation, if you will. All of that legacy knowledge in these communities and these organizations, maybe one or two folks knew exactly where all of those valves and hydrants and what lines and everything were. And then when they retire and move on, we really feel those losses in from an O&M standpoint. So workforce, enhancement is obviously one huge role there, but also redundancy and data storage. I don't know about any of you, but I've worked in the old mining towns and districts and things like that. Fire was prevalent, huge loss of records, fires, floods, those types of catastrophic events. And of course, we're seeing in our current society, modern society, where we're having more extreme weather patterns and things like that. The paper records, you kind of have one shot, and if you lose them, they're gone. And that's one of the beautiful things about keeping things digital, is that there's redundancy. And so being able to hang on and ensure you're going to maintain longevity of those records is a huge opportunity for this as well.
Exactly. So if you haven't already kind of scribbled that down in your calendar somewhere, starting this Thursday with the first introduction to GIS and surveying webinar that Linda and Esri will be putting on. And like I said, go to the website, get the rest of the information, get signed up for them, and be prepared to be wowed with some of this information and really open your eyes to what is possible out there. And I'm looking forward to really generating just more thought and more ideas and really giving people some impetus to go chase some more ideas, because there's always going to be something to learn. And this is definitely an avenue that's only going to continue to grow.
Absolutely.
Well, very good. Well, and I did promise at least one other tangent, because I think it's something that, I really want people to hear it from your perspective. We recently had our spring business meetings, and in conjunction with our NSPS spring business meetings is the annual student competition. And so we've changed it up the last couple of years, and I don't think people are completely aware of the technology that went behind a big part of the competition itself. And so day one And actually this year with so many teams, we had to split it up actually for both days. But one of the full days of the student competition was a scavenger hunt of significant monuments around the District of Columbia and surrounding areas. And so tell us a little bit about how NSPS and the young surveyors that were running it kind of roped you into this, putting together this with the Survey 123 app from Esri, and was able to really take that technology and utilize it for just a wonderful tool for the students and even the organizers to be able to track everybody and really make this a wonderful competition.
Oh, absolutely. Well, this actually sort of had kind of a slow start last year. I won't say slow start, but we started this concept last year, and the scavenger hunt of monuments, which is, I think this is just an absolutely incredible experience for these students to get to come to Washington, D.C. Some of our richest surveying history in the country is right in Washington, D.C. And so, first of all, just what an opportunity for those students to get out and be able to learn about history and also be practicing surveying. But as organizers, selfishly, we looked at it a bit and went, wow, okay, that's a lot of students, that's a lot of bodies, and that's a lot of marks. And we got to score all of this, and we want to keep everybody safe. And, so logistically, there were a lot of worries and considerations and thoughts to make sure that we put on an event that was fun and challenging and kept everybody reasonably safe. So we really looked towards GIS to think about, okay, we've got all these student teams. We don't want them further than really like 20 minutes from a metro stop, because it needs to be largely walkable. They were able to use other modes of transportation as well. So we looked at all of the marks in the DC area, and we started paring back on some of these different, things like, well, okay, if they're in a sensitive area, we want to take those out. We don't want them, we want to keep them out of sensitive areas. We want to make sure that they're reasonably accessible, but not, we want to make it challenging, but not, too difficult. And so we really leveraged GIS to look at our times, our distances, and look at where our marks were to kind of pare down and come up with the data set that we would have the students go out and do their scavenger hunt, if you will. So that was kind of the first piece. That was using core GIS functionality to do that. Once we had those pieces in place, we figured out where we wanted them to go. We had different data layers, which of course, anyone who's familiar with GIS knows that's kind of the beauty. You have multiple pieces and parts and data layers that really give you the power. So we had our metro lines, we had our hut marks, we had all of the different pieces of information they would need to navigate. And then we used field maps for them to be able to collect. So they needed to be able to take a point, collect a point once they found the monument, and take a picture to prove that they were there. And they could get extra credit by posting to social media. And so we leveraged GIS to essentially automate the lion's share of that part of the process. So it was collecting all of their locations, their photographs, their social media posting. So last year, that's kind of where we left it. And we did some summary statistics and things on the back end to do scoring and the grading and things like that. This year, and thank heaven, because we had such a wonderful turnout, we more than doubled last year's
Yes.
number. So I believe 24 teams total, and that yielded 70 bodies that we were.
Yes, a lot of bodies, a lot of bodies.
So we enhanced it this year, and I'm glad we did, because we were able to, we used dashboards essentially to be able to see where our teams were. We could watch the points coming in as they were collecting, make sure they weren't having problems. And then it was scoring in real time, essentially, to show us, those scores as they were adding up. So we have point values assigned. So the more difficult points got a higher point value, the easier ones to find had a lower point value. So that made them have to strategize, right? Do they want to go out far and find those hard ones and get more points, or do they really want to go fast and get the lower hanging fruit, if you will? So really fun competition. GIS was a huge lift for it, and exciting to get it in the hands of the students, to see them using it in a real way and in a real functionality. It was really exciting.
Well, what I liked about it, beyond just the fact that we were able to track and to score it so much faster, the fact of the matter is that we're living on our phones. We really, truly are. And especially a younger generation of students like this. And I'm not saying we're encouraging to stay on their phones and pay attention to the screens that much more and not where they're walking into traffic. But the fact is that we were utilizing something they already know with simply an app and being able to do all of these things. It's not like we handed them a separate data collector or separate technology that they had to go through and learn something completely different to be able to go out and very easily track around the district and find these monuments. And I think you couple that new technology and their current way of navigating the world and, figuring out where the nearest Jimmy John's is. But also putting that all together with we were directing them to, like you said, some of the most historic and fascinating survey monuments in the country. So I love that merging of the old and new there as well, because it really excited them, excited me. I wish I had an opportunity to go out and chase around some of these monuments like they did. But I really love how it all comes together, and it really shows this young generation of students and young surveyors what is truly capable with the technology. I think it's a great story of where things are going.
Oh, I agree. I'm a very practical person. I like to apply things and see things happen and do things and complete projects. That was my background for, the first 2 decades of my career was doing work and practically. So what's really exciting to me is this is such a great way to demonstrate it in a practical way, and it was fun. It was, and like you said, Tim, with today's consumer products that we all carry around, so much of that learning curve has really gone away. And I would say that to, all of our practitioners in the field, because most everybody's packing around some kind of a mobile device. It might still be a flip phone, but it's technology,
Right.
and anybody who is carrying any kind of a smartphone, it's just packed with location and mapping and those types of things. And so without even realizing it, we've all learned to some degree how to leverage and use that technology. So really that learning curve has really flattened, I think, in a lot of ways.
Well, it made for, at least for that part, not to say that the students didn't have a fun time with the antique equipment out around the Washington Monument, but at least for that day of scavenger hunt of these fantastic historical monuments, it really set the stage for a great day. And I know a lot of those students and even a lot of the young surveyors still complained a little bit about, I had 40,000 steps today. Well, that's good for you. I'm glad you were able to do that, because it was a great opportunity to, like I said, to tie in new technology with old history. And I kid about them complaining about the steps. Not one student or young surveyor complained ever about the scavenger hunt, because it was such a great opportunity. And we would, I guess from NSPS and the perspective of the history of the surveying competition, I'd like to thank you for helping put that part of it together, because it really made it that much more tied into technology, tied into the future, and it made it that much more exciting.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And it was just absolutely exciting for me to see it all come together. And as you mentioned, yep, we all heard him complaining about the number of steps and the number of miles, but not one of them did I see without a smile when they were saying it. So
yes,
it's a success when that's the case.
Oh, exactly. Well, listen, we're trying to be cognizant of your time. We appreciate all that you do for the industry, for what you've brought to the table for Esri, for what you're doing for NSPS. Besides the fact that you're now in leadership, I'm going to lean on you leaving that much more. But we thank you for putting on the webinars. We'll, like I said, we'll include that in this posting with the podcast, and it'll be on your website, and you'll be seeing it splashed everywhere. So thank you again for putting that on. Thank you to Esri for being such a great partner. I do want to tease out there a couple of things that you and I will be talking about in the not so distant future, but we would like to talk about like you said, more of the workforce development and where some of that is going, and the education that really needs to be included in that, and how we can do that more with tying in the remote learning and a lot of the technology that's out there. I do want to pick on you for some stories about your background with how much, because, and maybe I might be the only listener out there that would want to hear it. I doubt it. About all of the work you were doing in the mines there in South Dakota, and shooting signals back and forth from Fermilab in Chicago. I mean, there's some cool stuff there that we can get into. And then last but not least, we want to talk. I want to try to introduce everyone to the GIS dashboard that NSPS is putting together, based around your work, and pulling a lot of this information in, and even getting into some of that open source data that we were talking about, and why it's, this is going to be a great application of why it's so useful to our members, to the public, to a lot of people, and what your work on putting this together, along with a lot of my crazy visions of what this can be, that you're making real is kind of cool. So we got a lot of cool things coming up to talk about ahead of us.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, very good. Well, that'll wrap it up for this particular podcast of Surveyor Says. And remember, this is the Surveying and GIS with Linda Foster. You're going to be hearing a lot more of this, because this is where the technology is. And I think we've got a lot of practitioners out there that are going to find this, not just as the series, but a lot of the information that we're going to bring forward, very, very useful and very, very enlightening into where the technology and the profession is going. So, Linda, I hope you've got, I hope you're ready for a lot of chit chat in the near future.
I'm absolutely ready.
Well, that sounds great. Well, like I said, that'll wrap it up. Be on the lookout for that webinar. Wherever you listen to this podcast, hit that like button, give us some comments if you like what you hear, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks. You've been listening to the Surveyor Says podcast, brought to you by the National Society of Professional Surveyors. If you have any questions about today's episode or any other topic, please email us at info@nsps.us.com, and we are here to help. Visit our website, nsps.us.com, to learn more about our association, the programs we administer and support, our sustaining members, and information about future episodes of Surveyor Says. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as our podcast host, Podbean. And remember, it's a great day to be a surveyor.